Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to today's webinar, Behind the Headlines, How to Navigate and Engage with the American Lawyer's Business of Law team. I'm excited to facilitate this important conversation. My name is Beth Huffman, and I serve as Vice President here at Poston. We're going to get started as we have a lot of questions for Dan and want to leave plenty of time for responses. Before we begin, just a housekeeping note. The webinar is being recorded. All participants are currently muted. If questions come up during the session, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A box and we'll get through as many of them as we can, as well as those questions that you sent in when you registered. If we run out of time, I will get the answers from Dan and email them out afterwards. For those of you new to us, Poston Communications is a national crisis communications, public relations, and content agency. We serve clients in highly regulated industries, in particular the legal and accounting industries. We have B2B tech companies, financial institutions, commercial real estate firms, and insurance companies among our clients. Last year, we celebrated our 20th anniversary, and we're so thankful to have all of you here today with us. Now, let's get started. I'm going to start with, let's get to the stage, Dan Packel, who is one of the three editors of the Business of Law section. Dan, can you tell us who is on the Business of Law team and how?
Absolutely. We have about approximately 12 reporters scattered around the country, as well as a three-editor team of folks who are overseeing them. So we have a couple. I'm here in Philadelphia, and I run the desk with Sarah Tincher Numbers, who's based outside of Austin, and Christine Simmons, who's the lead editor for the team. She's in our New York office, and but we have reporters here in Philly, New York, Chicago, Miami, Atlanta, Houston, and on the West Coast. I think that and Washington D.C. So we're scattered around the major legal markets around the country.
One of the questions that did come in, and I know the answer is no, but will you explain why there's no roster, and if people are looking to contact the team, the best way to do that?
Yeah, we don't have a good reason right now for not having an external roster of beats. It's something that we as the editors can talk about. I think one of the issues is that it's just a challenge to keep it updated with some degree, the degree of turnover we have. Things have settled down a little bit as of late, but we can all be reached, the editing team, at the Business of Law email address, which I don't have memorized off the top of my head. I'm sure we can get that in the chat. And then we can discuss this as we go along, but individual relationships with editors and reporters are also helpful in getting your messaging out there.
So let's talk about what is the Business of Law. We're all in that business on this Zoom call of pitching you, some of us on a daily basis, and we want to make sure we're defining the business of law like you do. What are your main focuses, and what are some misconceptions about what you might cover?
I'm gonna go ahead and start just by reading some copy that we have internally from what we call the beer truck memo. This predates me, but the logic here is that if someone in a position of leadership on the desk gets hit by a beer truck and is hospitalized, all the information we need to know is there. But to quote from the memo, our goal is to provide competitive intelligence about the major players in the corporate legal industry, chiefly law firms, but also alternative legal service providers and others competing for influence and client dollars, and to give readers insight into key issues and trends affecting the profession. As a general rule, the Business of Law desk does not cover the mechanics of legal practice, except where a development on the law or precedent has direct bearing on law firm business. For example, a ruling that opens or closes bid practice opportunities that existed before, leading to shifts in hiring or business development. So no, we generally don't cover litigation unless it directly impacts one of the major law firms that we're covering or has some sort of impact on how law firms do business.
And certainly American Lawyer products do cover litigation. You have AmLaw Daily and other products for them to reach out to.
Exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit about the editorial process, how decisions are made, what your workday and deadlines look at? I know we all think now that everything is online, it's immediate, but I know you do have some guidelines for us here.
Dan, do you want to take this on from the reporter's perspective, and I'll do the editing side?
Yeah, sorry, it was about just process and sort of how we work together. Yeah, I think it seems like kind of a combination. Like at least in my work, like sometimes I will pitch stuff, and then my editor will either agree or disagree, and then a lot of it is collaborative. Either I'll get something from my editor, or some other reporter will have something that they don't have time to cover. So it's not so much like a really formal channel, so much as just like we're all trying to keep our eyes and ears open and distribute work based on who's the best position to do it at the time.
Yeah, my day begins with fielding the pitches from the four reporters that work on my team, as well as monitoring my own inbox to see what may have come directly to me, and then also looking at the broader news cycle to see if there's some stories that we should be attacking with a legal industry lens on them, and then working to assign work to the members of my team, checking in with the other editors to make sure that their reporters are busy, and if my team is overloaded, farming out some work elsewhere, and then reporters will work on the stories over the course of the day, and as soon as they get finished, we'll send back to the editors to get edited. We don't have we're no longer in print, so we don't have a really strict deadline process, but we give the stories the time they need to get out there.
How is the decision made? For instance, Dan Rowe writes a story and it mentions a firm and it mentions two cities. You guys have a multitude of products, from the American Lawyer, the National Law Journal, to the regional ones. How is the decision made that, hey, we wrote the story, but it should go in multiple ones, or it needs to go on the actual American Lawyer page? How's that decision made, or who makes that decision?
Editors will decide the publication that any given story originates, and then we will share with the more broadly with the other brand editors who oversee different publications, and give them the opportunity to choose if a given story is of value to their specific audiences. At the same time, there is a shift within the broader newsroom to consolidating coverage under the law.com brand, and getting readers to identify more with that national brand and less with some of the legacy publications that they might be familiar with.
Okay, we'll start with Dan Rowe again. What is the perfect pitch? What do you like to see, and what's included in the pitch? And also include best time of day if there is one to pitch you.
Sure. So to start with timing, I mean, obviously if you want something covered that day and you're not able to get a pitch off the day before, then earlier is better. For things that are more evergreen, probably depends on the reporter. I think I should see it regardless. As far as what makes a great pitch, I mean, I think obviously the first thing is it needs to be relevant to the person you're pitching. Surprising amount of pitches are not. And once you are kind of sure that like this reporter is something that is someone that is writing about the thing that you're hoping to have covered, you just want to be pretty clear and concise. Like don't hide the ball in the subject line, or try to be too cheeky or anything. Just kind of get your point across. Sometimes like if someone's sending a press release, they'll send like a sort of paragraph just summarizing the press release that we can just kind of read quickly, and that can help too as we're going through our inbox in the morning. Yeah, I think like if you have something to say and that we should cover, we're probably going to cover it. So just get the info across as early and as clearly and concisely as possible, and if it's up our alley, then it'll work out.
Dan Packel?
Yeah, I think I think Dan covered the bulk of it. Just being clarity, straightforward, reading what we produce already to have a sense of the sort of stories that fit with our desk, and crafting a pitch that matches with the content that we're already putting out there.
How do you feel, or is it a problem if somebody casts a wide net and they don't particularly have a relationship? Should they email like 4 reporters or just start with an editor?
If someone doesn't have a relationship with anyone, then it might be easiest to go straight to the editing team, and we can evaluate initially whether it makes sense for us and who might be best to take it on.
So as I said before, most of the people on this call are PR or marketing professionals. And we obviously look to foster a strong relationship with you so that we can continue to pitch our ideas. We'll start with you, Dan Packel, this time. What do you value most in your relationships from PR people?
I like people to be able to steer me in the right direction, and I think it's a trust business. Someone like you, Beth, who I've been working with for over a dozen years. I know
Long.
when you come to me with anything, you're not going to be wasting my time. It's going to be of value, maybe initially, maybe down the road. But trust is the most important thing, and having relationships of trust where we know that people aren't misleading us, and that they are delivering material that is going to be of value and of interest.
And I know you told me in our pre-call that one of your pet peeves is you've pitched it and then you get the answer. What is it that you don't like to hear?
They're not available today.
So that's, I guess, a lesson for us all to remember. And that is, if you pitch it, be ready to have them cover it, right?
Have your ducks lined up in a row when
Correct.
you're pitching things. If the people, the experts, the new hires are not available, then find a way to make them available, or save the pitch for another day.
Dan Rowe, how about you?
As far as
What
how
do you need from PR professionals? How can we make our relationship better with you?
Yeah, certainly. I think, as Dan was saying, basic trust and professionalism go a long way. There's times where we're dealing with a firm where we are writing something that understandably they're really not gonna like, and a PR person is still very professional. It's not like, I have a personal beef. It's just, I'm doing my job. I'm going to relay this information. I'm going to let you know what they say. And then I've had situations where something really shouldn't be an issue, and I don't know what's going on in the background, or whether this person is being hounded by a partner, but they just kind of come off immediately extremely combative and, try to like kill a story that isn't actually so bad. So just kind of like, being as professional as possible. I guess the one thing I would add too is like there doesn't the relationship doesn't just have to be like kind of one-sided in terms of like you all pitching us. There are a handful of PR people who I actually use in my reporting, who they're just willing to talk like on background or off record, sometimes about their firm, sometimes about other stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'll pay attention to any pitch that's good and up our alley, but the people that I have the best relationships with, are willing to like kind of provide something additional, and it can be a two-way street in that regard, which obviously gets back to the trust thing that Dan was talking about.
Okay, we've had 2 very pertinent questions come in from the audience today. Do you like attachments? Do they get through the ALM system? And how about headshots? Should we mail them with all of our pitches? Dan Packel?
Yeah, I'm attachment agnostic. They get through the system. I don't care one way or the other whether something's attached in the body of the email. If you are pitching lateral moves, it's always helpful to include headshots, because we will often want to use them. And rather than going back to you and saying, "Hey, can you provide some headshots?" It's great to have them attached to the initial pitch.
I've had personal experience with this next question because it usually comes up in the interview. But if we're pitching a new hire How long after the start date does it become stale? There are a significant number of reasons why law firms, somebody starts on Monday and you don't get them till Wednesday. And Dan Packel, you hit on one, they're not available. They're trying to figure out where their office is, who their admin is, get their clients, letters signed so they actually have work, get their new laptop. So sometimes having them announced on Monday when we don't even have access to them until Wednesday or Thursday is difficult. How long do you think it becomes stale?
There's no one easy answer to this. It also depends on the significance, how well known these individuals are. If it's of some very big names that are important to the industry, and they join the firm on Monday, and the announcement doesn't come out until Thursday, well, we will want to cover them unless they already updated their LinkedIn, and other enterprise reporters somewhere else figured out that these folks had made the move. We have no problem with covering significant moves several days, even a week after they've joined a firm, as long as it's not old stale news that is already out there.
Let's handle some issues of not necessarily confidentiality, but some holding of stories. For instance, I know I've worked very well with you in the past that I know I'm opening an office on Monday morning. We want to make a big splash. You've kindly interviewed the lawyers on Friday and told us, and we've agreed upon a time that you can announce it. So it's kind of a big splash. How, from your end, do you like to be directed to that? I'm assuming you want to make sure it's at least an exclusive that you get it first. What's the best way to work with you for something like that?
Yeah, we prefer an exclusive where we are given the opportunity to post this before the release goes out to others. I have, on certain occasions, I've been willing to negotiate for a legal industry exclusive, where if a firm wants to also share the news with the local business journal, I don't love it, but it's something that I'm willing to entertain. And then I guess the caveat with these stories that are that we're given advance notice for, and there's an embargo attached to it. The expectation, if the news does leak, we are no longer going to be bound by any embargo that was agreed upon. And I think it's important for my reporters to have that discussion with you folks in advance when agreeing to the terms of the embargo. Yes, we will follow it, but just in case someone puts it up on their LinkedIn feed and someone else notices and we get scooped, then we are no longer any obligation to wait until that agreed upon 5 a.m. on Monday morning or whenever we're going to hit publish as well.
In the last couple of months, I've had with at least two different of your reporters who asked if it was okay prior to the interview if they used otter notes. And I'm mindful of the fact that we are recording today and that I also like to record some of my interviews. How can we be sure that in using those, that everybody's truly careful when, we go off the record or say, hey, I'm going to give you some background, that it's no attribution and doesn't come back to that party? How careful is your team, and how often do you see something like otter notes being used?
Dan, do you want to handle? You're in the trenches here on this more than I am.
Yeah, I have to admit I'm a terrible source on this because I really haven't adopted AI transcription too much. But I will say, I mean, I don't think it would be too different from like how we work generally. Like if I'm typing out notes and someone says, "Hey, can we go off the record?" Then I'm hitting caps lock. I'm saying off the record. And then when someone says we're going back on, I'm hitting caps lock and I'm saying back on the record. So as long as it seems like the transcriptions are good enough, and I know that a lot of reporters are double checking them anyways to make sure. But I don't see it being too different from the way that we're sort of already working.
We're
Yeah,
getting some great questions coming in. And believe it or not, I haven't been a reporter in 25 years, but even back then, we were getting reports about readership metrics, How are those used? Are they pushed to reporters? How are they broken down? I guess Dan Packel. Um, I've also heard of publications where the reporters themselves have to be putting their own stories out on social media and pushing it. How is that handled at ALM?
We get daily reports from Adobe on traffic. Editors do some monthly and quarterly analysis of traffic trends. We use traffic trends, looking at traffic is one of the factors that guides what stories we assign and what we don't assign. We don't let it drive all the decision making. Back when I was a reporter, one of my beats was law firm innovation. That's an area where the stories are important. It's an important part of our how we cover the legal community, the legal industry, to be kind of on the cutting edge. At the same time, these innovation stories, they are not, I didn't find them to be huge traffic hits, but they were embraced by a small, but forward-leaning section of our readership. So that's the reason why we don't let ourselves be fully driven by the metrics, because we also have to exercise some sort of human agency and choice here, and recognize that even if the numbers don't back it up, it's important for us to be pushing coverage forward on a subject like this. That's just one example of how we think
How it
about this.
works. So innovation aside, if a story has particularly high metrics, I guess that could lead you to thinking about a follow-up story then.
Follow-ups, taking it, if it regionalizing it, if it's a national story, seeing if there's a way that we can attack it in some of the regions where we have regional reporters, or likewise, if it's an abnormally strong performing story that's focused on a given region, let's see if we could find a way to nationalize it. But and then look for, okay, this did well. Maybe there's an immediate follow-up, maybe there isn't. But let's look for opportunities to get on it down the road if there's no immediate follow-up.
What do those metrics tell you? Are they able to tell you just general location, people coming from in-law firms, outside law firms? I'm guessing there's no way to say if your readership is getting younger. And any other trends that you're seeing? I mean, I know new offices and other things, but also anything that seems to be hot right now?
I mean, in terms of breakdowns, the reports that I see on a daily basis don't really get too in depth about segmenting our audience. I think the biggest distinction we have there is between users who have registrations and on the site, and then just overall clicks. And we're most focused on registered users and subscribers, and generating content that's of interest to them. Obviously, I mean, new offices, new locations, hot practices. The biggest stories for us are those that often you folks don't necessarily want us to be doing, but stories that get under the hood of even of a given firm, or some broader trends that a number of firms are doing. Stories that look into how firms are changing their compensation systems, changing the partnership structures. That's sort of inside baseball. Those are the big winners for us.
And what's not news other than we have a new website, aren't we pretty? Anything that comes to mind you get pitched on a regular basis that you're like, just not what we do?
Sometimes I'll get pitched just like a profile, like, oh, isn't this person who just became my client, like, aren't they great? And it's like, unless they're like a really difficult person for us to get a hold of, who we would otherwise wanting to be profiling, which is a very short list of people, I think. It's kind of hard to respond to those in a productive way.
We get pitches for a lot of deals coverage, and we don't do a lot of it. My law firm just handled this deal. You should write about it. We don't do a lot of deals coverage, with the exception that if a deal is so big that it's in the broader mainstream press, the huge M&A, then we will be eager to do a story about the law firms and lawyers involved in that. the sort of smaller deals that don't necessarily resonate with where the parties to the deal aren't major brand names. Those are stories we generally don't cover.
How is your newsroom using AI? Neither one of you? Dan Packel?
We are not using AI. There was a report, some of you might have seen it, about Business Insider, a scoop that they are now allowing the reporters to write their first drafts via AI. I don't like it one bit. Wouldn't have anything to do with it. I mean, we use Otter AI and it's transcription AI for transcription services. But beyond that, some reporters are probably messing around with ChatGPT. I don't know if it's within our organization or elsewhere. Some folks will use ChatGPT to workshop headlines. I don't do that myself. I don't have a huge problem with it. But that's my sense of things. Dan, do you know any more than I do?
Yeah, no, as far as writing, like I feel like writing is such a small portion of our job, like time wise, that it doesn't like I don't feel the need to. The only time I've used it is just like if I'm doing a story that could require like putting together a lot of data points from various sources. Like once I was looking for like a specific firm in DC that had worked for like 3 specific clients because somebody told me that a fact about them, but they wouldn't name the firm. And so I put it into ChatGPT, and it's like, here are 3 law firms that fit that bill. And so I'm not going to go report that, but then it's like, okay, maybe you treat that like you would any other tip. You go and you see, is that true? So I could see it being helpful as just like a jumping off point when you're kind of you don't have any like amazing leads on something that could be sourced from information that's already on the internet, but
Dan has heard my praise before. He's the best stylist on our desk, and his pros needs no help from ChatGPT. He's better than what they have to offer.
Great job.
so far.
And no M dashes. You know how much ChatGPT loves the M dashes. It's a big difference.
I've been using M dashes since 2012. So if you want to go back to my writing, I can tell you that I was on the front end.
For PR people, quite often we need to maximize for our attorneys when they are quoted, putting it in social media, putting it on their bio, putting it on the front, on the website. Is there any issue with us pulling a small quote and attributing it to the American lawyer? I'm assuming you'd love to be tagged in our social media, as long as we give proper attribute and don't post
Absolutely.
all the
No
article.
issue with that. And you mentioned the social media element earlier. We have a social media desk. Our reporters are encouraged to share their work on socials. I think that for us, LinkedIn has that's where our material does best. Not everyone does it, but folks on the team are encouraged to get their stories up there.
Some more good questions coming in from everybody that's out there listening. You've talked about you have an expansive team and we have relationships with people, but if we have, multiple relationships, and I came from a firm that most recently that was in the South and we knew who was our person. But is it our person if, we're a firm headquartered in Atlanta, but we open an office in Los Angeles? How does that work? Still best to go through you or the person that we know?
Okay, so we for the firms in the AmLaw across the AmLaw 200, we have a specific reporter attached assigned to each firm. That is the firm that they cover, their beat. And if you know that reporter X is responsible for your firm, then even if reporter X is based in Atlanta and you have a new office in Los Angeles, go to the reporter you have that relationship with. They might write the story. They might determine that it's not a big enough story to write in conversation with their editor. They may not have time for it and then move it to someone else. But just because they're in a specific region, that doesn't mean they're not going to cover your firm nationwide.
How about on the practice group side? So if somebody is a finance and real estate attorney and we're pitching, that group has moved over, or an M&A group, is it still more regional and less practice based?
Yeah, I mean, we do have some practice related sub beats, but they are, I think, it's regions that drive the bus for us.
Okay. You mentioned the AmLaw 200, so there are people on this webinar today from a big firm to lower in the AmLaw 200. Quite often, I know that sometimes firms outside of the top 50, but definitely outside of the 100, from 100 to 200, feel a little left out, trying to make a break in when they're competing with big law. What kind of stories do you think carry best for them? I'm assuming a AmLaw 195 firm bringing in one partner may not warrant a story, but how are ways that they can break into your coverage?
You need to show that you're doing something different and something unique. One of my reporters got a pitch, I think it came directly from an AmLaw Second 100 managing partner, talking about their rate structure and how it's more competitive than some of their larger competitors who they are, competing for business against.
Mhm.
And he was ultimately willing to go on the record and talk a little bit about that rate structure and how they are using it to compete with bigger firms. That's a story. That's something we're eager to get into because it really showcases how different firms are finding different ways to compete in this current environment.
Having been the person where it was, brought up in a meeting with fellow C-level people or whatever about things we do different and operational sides of things. Do you do much coverage of firms that, how they operate outside of the legal practices, or are you just looking for people who are like truly unique on the operational side?
Uh, if we can find ways that firms are structuring their operations differently in novel ways, that's definitely of interest to our readership.
Have you seen any many operational pitches lately, or a- anybody focused on that?
Uh, there's a pitch that this is a new. It's a little bit old, but I returned to this in editing a story the other day. A firm pitched a new position, a director of connections, and this is a role that is dedicated to promoting greater cohesion among flexible and hybrid workers in the firm, and so that's the role that's big. And I wanted to write this story, even though the firm didn't make the new hire available, just because it still speaks to how they are crafting a strategy that facilitates hybrid and remote work,
Mhm.
which is one of the bigger questions that's been confronting the industry for the last 5 years.
Well, on that end, of course, that we see trends, correct? We see,
Mhm.
hybrid work, other work. Are you seeing any trends lately that some of us should start looking at our firms to see if we're doing something differently?
Trying
I
to
think
think of.
going back to the question about how do second hundred firms like get
Mhm.
attention, I think one trend we're seeing is more, operational leadership positions at firms, and those probably starting with the bigger firms, and then if you're one of the first firms in your cohort as a 500 lawyer law firm, to have a certain position, a certain operational position, then that could be newsworthy, even if it's something that bigger firms are doing, because it's kind of trickling down the AmLaw list a bit.
Oh, I remember when the trend was who's got a new DEI officer, and now it's who has a new chief innovations officer. Absolutely, understanding that. Um, some harder questions. The current administration has made covering the legal industry pretty interesting. Literally, how hard has that been? I'll start with Dan Rowe. Have you had to cover stories where you're literally having to ask people or people are under fire?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people have pulled back, especially in areas like DEI and whatnot. In a way, it's kind of a double-edged sword because it's a lot more to cover. It's different power dynamics coming from the government that at least I've ever seen in my lifetime. And then on the other hand, yeah, people are not really trying to paint a target on their back or that of their firm. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but it's, well within the purview of what we signed up to do.
Dan Packel, any push as an editor to cover more or less on that side? Because, obviously we had the people who were signing executive orders or under fire or the lawsuits. It seems to have calmed down lately. But when you were in that hot mess, was there pressure from either side to stop it or do more?
I mean, we definitely had to pull more people onto the coverage of what was going on in and outside of Washington, and that meant moving some. I mean, we have one reporter in D.C. who had been that was her Abigail's market, and there was no way she could cover everything she was going on in the Capitol on her own. So we did have to move a number of people onto that work. I mean, we obviously were doing more. I mean, for me, it was interesting. I mean, the business of law is this quiet little corner of the broader business coverage world, and which we had kind of to ourselves. I mean, we have our few competitors, and then I remember 6 months ago, and I would take a break from working on these stories, and then I get this. I used to get the Sunday Times just delivered to me, and I would open it up, and they would have a story with 5 bylines on it, writing about the Trump administration going to war with these law firms that we cover. Think, oh, well, this is a new world we're in, where we're not only competing with our regular competitors, but we're competing with these guys as well.
Well, I go so far back. If some people will know this reference, I was a spokesperson on Black Thursday when in 2009, the legal industry lost thousands of practitioners in a day to layoffs. So I know personally it's difficult as a spokesperson to handle that, but I'm assuming you can say positive things about some of the individuals, some spokespeople that you talk to, I'm sure were doing their best to help you.
Absolutely.
Here's a question that just came in. Our feature pieces, enterprise stories that you work on for 2 weeks and you look at a lot of things. Do you still publish those, or are you still, cranking out what comes to you each day or every other day?
We're doing a mix. We no longer have the American Lawyer magazine, which gave us a monthly deadline to come up with a series of 3,000 word features. But our reporters are expected to mix in the daily coverage with deeper, well-reported feature and enterprise ideas. Dan does a bunch of these. He does them well. He can talk maybe a little bit more.
Dan?
Yeah, certainly. I think we part of the cadence is just depending on like kind of the spigot of news. There are some weeks where it's a crazy news week and I might not write an enterprise story. And then there's weeks where I only write enterprise stories, either because that's what we decided the priority was, or simply there just isn't a lot of hiring or anything like that going on. So yeah, certainly. And to that extent, if firms and PR folks are seeing trends or seeing things that they think we should be covering, they can definitely reach out outside the context of a formal pitch. We just love to hear stuff on the ground, and it doesn't just have to come from attorneys.
Okay, let's have a conversation about you've accepted a pitch and we're setting up an interview. Yes, Zoom, Teams, do you prefer a regular phone call? Do you like looking at people? What can practitioners say to their attorneys? Now, if their attorney's coming from court and they're calling you on the phone, we know that Zoom's not, but what do you like? Do you just not want to look at people all day, Dan, and be home in your pajamas? Are you good with Zoom? What's the best way, Dan Rowe?
I'm fine with either, to be honest. Yeah, if we're on Zoom, I'm probably gonna have to be focusing on like what I'm typing as well as the person, but people don't really seem to mind that. And yeah, I kind of go into the day expecting that it might be on camera. So yeah, whatever works on their end, I'm pretty good with.
Okay. Additionally, from the practitioner's side point of view, do you like us to send you, after we've sent the pitch and we've agreed to it, additional prep? Like, by the way, here's an article this person wrote about that, or here are 4 things that we've done in this area. Do you prefer to have the additional stuff before the call?
Ideally, yeah, that would be great. Anything that we should know, before we talk to somebody, so that we don't have to go back later, would be great.
Now, again, as a former reporter and now PR person, I know in particular, Dan Packel and I talked about it. I had to be on 2 calls yesterday. I know all of us will tell us we prefer to be quiet. I've had to step in once or twice and say, I'm sorry, we can't speak to that. Do you mind if the PR people are on, Dan Rowe?
No, it totally depends on kind of how they go about it. Like if you're trying to police responses to every single question, then that could get, aggravating. And I guess we reserve the right to say that a PR person stepped in and said that they didn't want to talk about it. I haven't had to do that yet, but yeah, I think if it's the best situation is there's like a value add where, in financial interviews that we do annually to make the AmLaw or to cover the AmLaw performance, for instance, like we cover so much ground, there will be PR people who say, "Oh, you forgot to talk about this," or "Let me go fact check that in real time. I'll get you a figure." I understand that you have to do your job, and maybe you do have to jump in sometimes, but yeah, I would say just try to do that sparingly.
Now, both of you be kind because we hear this every day, and my answer is always no, you cannot review the article before it is published. Um, but if they want to review a quote, is it best done before the call is over to say, is there anything you want me to quote me on? Can you read it back to me? Or how do you handle that? I'll start with Dan Packel this time.
Yeah, it's best to negotiate in advance of the at the beginning of the call. We will never let anyone review a story before it's published. We will not send quotes over to people to approve via email. What we will do, as long as this is discussed in advance, is read back quotes for accurate to give a check for accuracy. This can be done at the end of the call. It can also be done if there's a ton of material and the reporter doesn't necessarily know what they're going to use. We can say, hey, look, once I know what I'd like to use, I'd like to get back on the phone with you to just to run it by you to make sure I captured it properly. Can we set up a time tomorrow afternoon to spend 5 minutes doing a readback?
Yeah, Dan Rowe, anything else in that line?
No, that's about exactly how I like to deal with it too. So
Okay. So kind of still in that line, do you do any more, hey, I've got this really cool person. I'd love you just to have an introductory meeting so you cover this or cover that often. Is that still of interest, Dan Packel?
Yeah, I encourage my reporters to take every opportunity to meet people who might have interesting stories to tell, might be interesting sources on the road. Go out and talk to people whenever you can,
Dan Rowe?
even if there's not an immediate story to come from it.
Well, I know I've had it before when we've had that, and then the reporter has said, okay, you've given me 2 story ideas. May I use you as a source for that? So that's always a good thing. Dan Rowe, any experience you've had with that, positive or negative?
only positive. Yeah, no, I sometimes nothing immediate comes out of it. Sometimes it does, but yeah, just I don't see a negative in learning and meeting more people that we're either covering or we're covering stuff that they work on.
So we did talk about reviewing things. How do you advise us when the story doesn't go as planned? When a story comes out and we feel misled, that's not what we thought we were being interviewed on, or we feel there's a factual error. Where do we go first, Dan Packel?
I encourage PR folks to take the issue directly to the reporter involved. Explain to the reporter how they feel, what went wrong or what the issue is, and then I mean maybe the reporter knows that they were in the wrong right there and can go directly to me and say, hey, I screwed this up. I would like to. We need to make a correction. I will say, great, okay, what's the correction? Well, let's go take care of it. If it's a more contentious issue, I mean, I place great trust and faith in my reporters that they are dealing fairly with their sources and fairly and honestly with me. And so with my baseline is that I have folks I have their back. So I want to hear the story from them. And then if I need to, if they take it to me and I need to speak to one of you folks, then I will share what I heard from my reporter, my understanding of the situation, and then balance that with what you tell me about the situation and find a way to reach a resolution of it.
Okay, Dan Packel, I know that you started months ago, and there's been quite a bit of change in how the Law Firm Disrupted column is being done. What is the purpose of it? What are they looking for in the Law Firm Disrupted, and who is assisting or taking turns writing this story for you now?
So the Law Firm Disrupted is a weekly briefing that it provides a sense of some trends where the legal industry is moving forward, new challenges, new dimensions, and it's sort of a less source driven and more commentary on some on current trends. It used to be that I was writing this. I wrote this on my own for about 6 years since one of our reporters left for a competitor. I was starting to burn out a little bit on it. Now we've brought in 3 of the other editors to contribute on a rotating basis. It's an area where we're looking for pitches. If you have a sense of sort of outside pressures on the law firm business model, and things that are just pushing the industry and law firms in a different direction. It's an opportunity for us to put a gloss on it, and we welcome ideas.
Okay, we'll go to Dan Rowe. Can you just talk from experience? You have a, so to speak, room full of PR people. Talk to them, and I'll get you Dan Packel next. How you want to work with them, what you like to see, what you appreciate. Just it's your 2 to 3 minute speech here to the people you work with every day.
Yeah. So basically, probably just try to sum up a lot of what we've already covered here. I mean, I think obviously their client is not me, but if they think about like in a reporter's shoes, like what do I need to do my job? Whether that's kind of just the basic stuff in terms of, clear and concise and timely and accurate pitches and getting people available on time, or I guess if something is more contentious, just, being professional and trying to do their best to kind of provide what they can. I don't know. There's so much ground to cover. I guess it's a tough question to think of all at once. But yeah, I think just if your baseline is that we're doing our jobs in good faith, and that we are not like really out to get you or anything, then I think that you'll have a better interaction. And that's kind of been my experience with most people I've worked with. So
it is difficult to work with lawyers, Dan, who are, I think, raised to see the worst case scenario after they go to law school, to explain to them exactly what you said. They're not out to get you. They're out for the story. They don't have an ulterior motive. You can trust them. And we do face that, not every day, but quite a bit with people. And not so much, I don't think, when you've got a lateral coming in, but when you're working on another story, it definitely happens. And we do our best to keep it from happening. Dan Packel?
Yeah, you all see and hear a lot. You're very much in the know, and we appreciate your well-polished pitches about what the great things you want to highlight at your law firm. But we also would love to hear from you, even if it's not just on not with a full pitch about this, about one thing you're looking to get out there. If you have just some observations about a few trends that you're seeing in your law firm and elsewhere, that doesn't necessarily, it doesn't need to be fully packaged up. Just, hey, call us up or send an email and say, this is what I'm noticing. Or look, if you are hearing something about something that's going on at one of your peers and it seems newsworthy, look, we're happy to talk on background about that. We'd love to hear from you about what you're seeing more broadly.
Another thought, because you've both been so generous with your time, and I'm mindful that I don't think ALM is a 5-day in the office workplace anymore. Do you do any in-person meetings anymore? If Dan Packel, I know that you're in Philadelphia, and you've been generous with your time when I'm there. But do you still go to lunch if somebody says, "Hey, we're in Philly, Dan, can we go to lunch and just have a chat or come by the office?"
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Dan Rowe is in Bend, Oregon. He doesn't get to meet many folks that often, but being here in the Philly office, and for my reporters who are in major metropolitan areas, I will take the opportunity to meet folks in person, and I encourage my reporters to get out there too. And look, yeah, Dan did this for many years in Miami. He's been on the ground. He's gotten face to face with folks. But there's real value in making in-person connections whenever possible.
Well, if Dan and Dan do not have any more to say, I want to say thank you very much. I think we probably have the full gamut from old veterans like me to newer people who now we hope will uh, do the right pitches, get you everything in a timely fashion. And I thank you for your time today. For everybody else on the call, I want to let you know you can see on your screen about our next session. And we are going to be blessed to have Adrian Larson, who helped found JD Supra, who is a hoot and loves Philly cheesesteaks, by the way, Dan Packel. And Paul, whose name I can never pronounce. And they're going to talk to us really about how JD Supra can help drive your visibility. A lot of firms are out there adopting it, but maybe you should have a real understanding of how it works and how it should be used so you're maximizing your use. So I look forward to that session in October. And November, stand by. We will be on the ground when Best Lawyers does their release of their 2025 rankings. So I thank everybody. I appreciate your time, and everybody have a great day.